because this friend of mine that I'd known for 20 years sat down and had a conversation with my mother over dinner about a topic that we never discussed, learned that my paternal grandmother was his grandmother's employee. And that was how we figured out that these poor Barbadians managed to get to the United States. Paternal grandparents' side, my father's mother was a domestic, and eventually she emigrated to the United States, and she actually lived with us. We all lived in the same house. Both my grandparents, my maternal grandmothers, and my maternal and paternal grandmothers, and my maternal grandfather, we all lived together. So as I said, I was a treasured child because I had immediate access to 3 generations of family members. It was incredible. Nobody beats a grandma, I can tell you that right now. Grandmothers are treasures, believe me when I tell you. They'll do anything for their grandchildren, much better than parents. Well, anyway, my paternal grandmother was a Barbadian woman. She had 5 children, and she worked for the Cunards. The Cunards were a British shipping family. Now, this is a very interesting story because when I went to England, my ex-husband was British. Well, he's still British, he's just not my husband anymore. But my daughter was born in the UK, and her godfather, also a British man, was married to an American woman, and that's how I met him. His grandmother was my grandmother's employer. And I never knew this until one day he was visiting. He was a curator and a collector and an artist representative. And he was representing some artists and came to New York to go to an auction at Sotheby's, and asked me if he could call me and said, "Deirdre, my family are not answering the phone and they actually live in your neighborhood. Do you think it would be all right if I could come and spend the night because I have this event tomorrow?" Well, of course, I've known this man now for 20 years. He knows my mother. My mother was still alive at the time and living in this very house. And so we invited him over, we had dinner, and they started talking, and she started telling him about her husband who came from Barbados. And he said, "Oh, that's interesting because my grandmother lived in Barbados." So my mother's trying to figure out, well, what were white people doing living in Barbados? And he said, yes, my grandmother went to Barbados right before the war. Really, the World War II went into full drive. They had the money, they could escape war. And they were shipping magnates, and they went to Barbados to get away from the European theater of war. And this woman hired my grandmother as her handmaiden, if you will. And it was because this friend of mine that I'd known for 20 years sat down and had a conversation with my mother over dinner about a topic that we never discussed, learned that my paternal grandmother was his grandmother's employee. And that was how we figured out that these poor Barbadians managed to get to the United States. You can't make this stuff up, can you? You really can't. Yeah, it is. So our family somehow connected to the Cunards. Don't ask me how that happened, but it's everything is that expression 6 degrees of separation is real, is real, because we find ourselves connected to one another through very strange links in society, through bloodlines, through immigration, through displacement, through lots of channels.